Laz, I'm going to start with you. Adrian Newey, who I would say is critical, crucial, pivotal, the mastermind behind some of the dynasties that we've seen from this Red Bull team over the last 2 decades. He is going to leave the team. What did you make of the decision? Why now, all of a sudden?
Well, this has been rumbling away for a little while. It's been clear that Adrian has been thinking about his future. Obviously, we know at Red Bull, I mean, it's basically all we've talked about this year is the turmoil off track. Of course, they've been very successful on track, but clearly right now it's not a team that he wants to be a part of going forward. He had a contract that ended at the end of 2025, and they're going to let him go in basically the second quarter of next year. That should leave a possibility for him to go somewhere else and have an influence on 2026, probably not as much as he would have liked, but of course the fact that he was contracted to 2025 then would have had a 12-month gardening leave clause, which meant that he probably wasn't going to go anywhere till 27. So that is kind of, you know, the negotiation that's been going on behind the scenes, and now they're ready to present it to the F1 world, and everyone's gone crazy and everyone wants his signature on a piece of paper to bring him to their team. So yeah, it's certainly exciting from a competitive point of view.
Yeah, Aston Martin, Ferrari, certainly some names that I think would be vying to bring Adrian Newey into the fold. I want to just hit the press release. His quote was, "For almost 2 decades, it has been my great honor to have played a key role in Red Bull Racing's progress from upstart newcomer to multiple title-winning team. However, I feel now is an opportune moment to hand that baton over to others and to seek new challenges for myself. In the interim, the final stages of development of RB17 are upon us, so for the remainder of my time with the team, my focus will lie there." Surprised, yes or no?
Up until last week, yes, I would have been, but we've had this kind of slow announcement this week. It's like leaked out into the press. But certainly if you'd gone back a week, 2 weeks, even to the start of the season, and you said Adrian Newey is going to be leaving Red Bull, Max Verstappen we're still not sure is going to be there, all of this that's happening at Red Bull right now is surprising. So yeah, it's a huge step. And I think more than anything, Adrian Newey, I remember growing up as a fan, Adrian Newey was still revered as this great designer. But for so many fans, he is synonymous with that Red Bull team. You know, even though he has stepped back over the last few years, it's so difficult to picture Red Bull. It's actually probably harder to imagine Red Bull without Newey and Verstappen than it is without Horner in a way. I know Horner's been there for a long time, but so much credit goes to those 2 other guys. So I think it's going to be huge. And I think that the big question now is, what does it mean for Red Bull going forward? What does it mean for Verstappen going forward? We know he's kind of been looking at other options and stuff. But yeah, surprise is a good word for it. And I think that yeah, it's a bit like the Lewis news, isn't it? It's Lewis going to Ferrari. Until that happened, it didn't really feel like it was ever going to be something that happened, him going to Ferrari. And now, I'll throw this to Spencer if you want, but that's one of the tantalizing options now on the table, which is great.
Yeah, and before we get to the options, I do want to note, it's amazing how Red Bull screwed this up. Like, it is amazing a difference one billionaire makes, because after the death of Dietrich Mateschitz, who evidently was the only thing keeping this all together with the force of his galvanizing personality and endless wallet. Yeah. Once he was gone, the chemistry that kept that team in place, that made everything so dominant, and that commitment just slowly began to flake apart. And it's when you talk about the time frames for when you would see an Adrian Newey make an effect, right? When you would see him show up in the specs and influence the team's performance. Dietrich Mateschitz's death, it happened quite a while ago, but the effects are just continuing to chip away. That is amazing to me, that you have the best setup in 21st century racing, right? A combination of engineer, driver, and managerial class at the team. And one guy goes, and suddenly everyone's freelancing.
Yeah, and on that, that's spot on. And I think you see it with a lot of dynasties. Look at the Bulls when you look at the last dance. A lot of what starts to chip away at those dynasties, same with the Patriots, is who takes the credit for what's happened. Sure. And since Mateschitz has gone, there's clearly internally been a struggle there of who deserves the credit. I think one thing that we've heard behind the scenes that Newey's been upset about has been the fact that, you know, when Christian Horner talks about the team, he talks about Pierre Wash now, who's, I think he's technical director, is that his role? Correct, yeah. And Newey often kind of gets, not brushed aside, but they will talk about other people in that team. And I think for Newey, that is infuriating, because he looks at that and says, well, I'm the guy leading this dominant era that we've got here. And Horner, when everything that was going on with him earlier in the year when they had that launch, he said, I built this team. That was his defiant statement. And that couldn't have been something that went down with Newey. So yeah, I think to that point, I think Mateschitz was kind of this great kind of leveler at the top. You have all these egos. You've got Helmut Marko, who we haven't mentioned yet, but he's in there as well. You've got the Verstappens. When Mateschitz was there, he could manage all of that. And I think it is interesting that that's gone now. And slowly, I mean, that was only a year and a half ago, wasn't it? That Mateschitz passed away. And all of this has unraveled since then. So yeah, I think that's a really spot on point from Spencer.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.